Today's year is Masechta Sanhedrin Daf Kuf Hey 105. So we're going to begin from Daf Kuf Dalet Amid Beis. We're discussing over here some of the psukim in Eicha. So we're up to the pasuk of Bochai Sifka Belayla. It's about 1/3 down the page of Kuf Dalet Amid Beis. So the Gemara begins like this: Bochai Sifka Belayla. That he cried and cried at night. So we're darshaning that pasuk. Shtei b'chiyas halalu lama. Why there are two cries? Hi, Sheldon. We just began.
Okay.
I'm just talking Daf Kuf Dalet Amid Beis, and we are discussing we're discussing the psukim of Eicha. Okay. So we're discussing the psukim of Eichan, Daf Kuf Dalet Amid Beis, and we got some catch up to do. Bachai Sifka Balayla. He cries and cries at night. That's the pasuk in Eicha. You're all familiar with that pasuk. Shtei b'chiyas halolu lama. Why does it say twice cry, cry in the pasuk in Eicha? Omar Rabba Yochanan. Rabba said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Echad al Migdash Rishon, ve'echad al Migdash Sheni, which we're all familiar. The two Batei Migdashos were destroyed on the same day, which is the 9th of Av. Balayla, why do you cry at night? Al Iske Laila. It's because of what the Jews did at night. That's why God brought about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. With what Avera did the Jews do at night? It's the Chet of Meraglim. The pasuk says, when the spies came back, the pasuk says they all cried that night. So because you cried, oh, listen to this. It sounds like my father talking. The night that the Meraglim came back was Tisha B'Av at night, and the Jews started to cry. They don't want to go into Israel. God said to the Israel, God said to the Jewish people, you cried for nothing. And I'm going to make you cry for something, a crying which is going to be in the future generations with the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Davaracha, another interpretation. What does Balayla mean? That God made it that we heard at night. Whoever cries at night, his sound is heard more at night. That's what it says, because during the daytime you hear somebody crying, it doesn't affect you. When you hear somebody crying at night, like Elenu, they heard in the concentration camps, it had really, really affected the other people. And there's less noise at night. Davracha, whoever cries at night, so the stars and the constellations also cry with him. They have so much rachmanis of somebody crying at night. Davaracha, and here says the Gemara a fascinating story. Balayla, if you cry at night, whoever's going to hear your crying will cry along with you. And the Gemara says a fascinating story. There was this woman. She was a neighbor to Rabbi Gamliel, and her son died. She would cry at night. Shama Rabbi Gamliel would hear her sound of crying, and he couldn't hold himself back. Then he would cry opposite her. It took him so to heart that his eyelashes fell out. The next day, he killed by Talmidav. The students recognized that Rabbi Gamliel looks different. He was crying the whole night. And they realized it's because this new neighbor moved in who cries at night. And they asked her to move from the neighborhood of Rabbi Gamliel. Its tear is on its cheek. It's a pasuk in Eicha. Amar Rav Rabbi Yochanan, Isha shaboicha al bal ne'urel. It's like a woman who cries who just lost her young husband. Shenama eli b'sula k'b'sula chagosak abal ne'ureha lo yaleinu. We saw a lot of that in October 7th. Young couples who were engaged and the husband didn't come back. So that's what it is. What is? You never get over that. Those that oppressed Yerushalayim and Jewish people became on top. Whoever whoever oppresses the Jewish people becomes a head of government or something like that. It's just to show the chashivus of the Jewish people. Ki loy mu'uf lasha mutzak la ke'es rishon hokel artzes vulim v'artzen aftali v'achron hichbed derech yam eber hayardin galil gagayim. Whoever starts oppressing the Jewish people never gets tired of doing that. We saw that by the king of Assyria, who went 3 times to exile the Jewish people. First, he exiled from the 10 tribes, he got Zvulun and Naphtali. Then he went across the water, Evar Yarden and Gat. He exiled Reuven, Gad, and the half of Manasseh. And then he got the rest of the 10 tribes. So he didn't get tired out. He did it once, twice. He deported until he finished deporting all of the 10 tribes living in the north and across the Jordan. Then the pasuk says in Eicha teaches you a nice thing. When a person says and is expressing his sorrows to somebody, you should say it shouldn't happen to you, because nobody's going to want to listen to your sorrows, because they're going to think, oh, it might happen to me. So by the person who it happened to wishes to the other person that he's telling it over that it should not happen to you, that will allow the person to want to listen. I mean, because you said lo aleichem. You're allowed to tell somebody over what's going on with you, but you got to make sure to say lo aleichem. It shouldn't happen to you. It's whoever passes on the road. It shouldn't happen to you what happened to us. We were made like the people who violated the moral laws of the world, which is Sodom. By Sodom, God made it rain, and in Yerushalayim, God also threw a fire from heaven. So we were sinning like Sodom. We were punished like Sodom. We even did worse averas than Sodom. So then the Gemara says, if Yerushalayim did worse averas than Sodom, does God favor Yerushalayim? It should have punished Yerushalayim like it punished Sodom. It should have turned the whole thing into the Dead Sea. Amar Rav Yochanan, Yerushalayim had one good thing that Sodom did not have, and that is that the people were nice people to each other. They were charitable, and whereas Sodom, they were not charitable at all. They never gave a dime to a poor person. There were women who had sympathy for other people. So that's why Yerushalayim was spared and didn't get the same punishment as Sodom got. Then the pasuk says, "Silo kol abira Hashem b'kirbi ka'adam shem lechaverim niflazu b'peyazu," that we were crushed. Like a person would say that you crush a coin where you can't even recognize that it was once a coin. That's how crushed we were. And if you look at the Eicha, it's usually in the Aleph base, but in certain chapters, the Pei comes before the Ayin, and usually the Ayin should come before the Pei. Why does the Pei before the Ayin? So B'Shvil Meragam, because we were punished because of the spies. Their mouths were talking about something that they didn't see in their eyes. It means basically they lied. Or they were biased in what they saw. So therefore, that's why the pay comes before the ayin, because to hint to us that was the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash is connected to the sin of the Meraglim. There's a pasuk that says that if you eat the bread of my nation, that's called eating bread. When the goyim steal the possessions of the Jewish people, they enjoy it. When they steal other people's bread, they don't taste it's not as fun, so to speak, as when you loot the Jewish people. Hashem loy karol. The reason why goyim have this right to to loot the Jewish people because they're not taking Hashem into account. Rav Oma Eludadayanim. These were that the reason why the Goyim could overpower us and take our possessions away is because we have corrupt judges. Shmuel says, Elu Malamdi Tinoikis. We have corrupt menahalim, corrupt teachers of children that don't teach well or they don't have the skills to teach, and yet they're hired. Those are the reasons why God will bring about the Goyim and steal the possessions of the Jewish people. Now we go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said very simply that 4 kings in the Jewish Tanakh, do not have Olam Haba, 3 kings and 4 Hedyotis, and 4 common people. So the Gemara asked, Mimanan, how did the Chazal know? Who knew? How do you know who goes into Olam Haba? Amar Rav Ashi, Anshe Knesset Gedolah Manam. The Anshe Knesset Gedolah, who were themselves prophets, they're the ones that told us these people are not going into Olam Haba. Like Menashe, like you learned in the Mishnah. Like Yeravam, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. So Rav Yehuda said the name of Rav, and here's another fascinating thing. There was a great king called Shlomo HaMelech, the son of David. And the pasuk implies that he did bad things also. So Bikshu Oid Limnas Echad. So the Anshe Knesset Gedolah wanted to say that Shlomo HaMelech should not get into Olam Haba. He's not going to stand up Tchias HaMesim. But their father came, which is David HaMelech, who was in the next world, came and lobbied before the Anshe Knesset Gedolah. They didn't pay attention. A fire came from heaven and burnt the benches where the Anshe Knesset Gedolah were sitting. They didn't pay attention. They kept with their opinion that Shlomo HaMelech is not worthy of Olam Haba. Baal God himself came to defend Shlomo HaMelech. And God said like this, when it came to Shlomo building his palace, he was more lazy about it when it came to building the first Beis HaMikdash. For the first Beis HaMikdash, it took him 7 years to build. For his own house, he built it in 13 years. So you're going to have this person, shouldn't he be in Olam Haba and not be in standing in front of people who are Rishoyim? I mean, he's worthy to come to Olam Haba. So God himself defended Shlomo. And God did not pay attention to him. The Anshe Knesset Gedolah did not pay attention. They said Shlomo is not worthy to get into to Olam Haba. That's it. God said, I had enough. I'm the one who decides who gets to Olam Haba, and I'm selecting that he could come in. Interesting. Anyway, the Gemara concludes something even more fascinating. And despite the fact that we learned about these kings, that they were Rishoyim, evil people that caused the Jewish people to sin and do Avodah Zarah, Gilei Arayos, the ones who know how to read Psukim read into it that even these bad kings are coming to Olam Haba. Shenema Ligila v'Libnashe v'Ephraim Oiz Rosh Yehuda Mechayki Yeboy v'Seirachzi Al Edem Ashechnali Alai Pleshes Yisroi O'o. So the pasuk is saying, God is saying, Li Gilad Za Achav. Achav is going to be with me. Shenafal b'Ramas Gilad. Achav fell in Ramas Gilad. So Achav is with God. Menashe, it's Kemashmoi. Menashe refers to King Menashe. Ephraim Oiz Rosh is a Rav Nikosim Ephraim. Refers to Yeravam. So basically, it's saying Achav is coming to Olam Haba, Menashe is coming to Olam Haba, and Yeravam is coming to Olam Haba. Yehuda Mechaykiki, that's the Achitophel. That is Achitophel. The Ka'asim Yehuda came from Shevet Yehuda, right? They were relatives. He was relative to David HaMelech. He's coming to Olam Haba. Moyav Sirachzi Zagechazi Shalok Al Isri V'chitza. That refers to Gechazi, who was Elisha's attendant, and he lost his Chelek Olam Haba. He's also getting into Olam Haba. That had to do with Naaman going to the mikveh. You have to going into the waters. You have to read Tanakh. Al Edom Ashach Nali Zedoyik Hadoimi. That's referring to Doyik Hadoimi. Edom is going. I'm going to bring him in also in the Gan Eden. Says Hashem. So everybody mentioned in the Mishnah according to the way you read these psukim, it hints to that they are just they are going to get into Olam Haba. So now, Alai Peleshis is right. I'm going to make friends with the Pelishtim. That's what the pasuk ends off. What was that discussion? The angel said before God, "You're going to bring Doeg and Achitophel. These are the strong enemies against David HaMelech. They caused David a lot of hardships. Im Yave David shaharag as a plishti v'hirish benecha as gas ma'atoy. If David's going to claim, want them out of Olam Haba, and David is such a great person, he killed the plishti and gave the Jewish people the city of Gas. What are you going to answer to them? He's going to ask God to get Doeg and Achitophel out of Olam Haba. So God says, "Alai lasei reim zelzeh." I'm going to appease David HaMelech. I'm going to try to make peace between Doeg and Achitophel and David. Now the Gemara, and so everything works its way out in Olam Haba. Now we go to another pasuk in Yirmiyah. Madua shayva ha'ama zeh Yerushalayim meshiva nitzachas. Meshiva nitzachas means a winning argument. Amarav, Rav says that tshuva nitzachas heshiva knesset Yisrael lanavi. A winning argument, the Jewish people, which is Knesset Yisrael. Knesset Yisrael refers to that one neshama that all Jews are part of. So I'm part of Knesset Yisrael, and so are you. We're all part of this one neshama, and we answered the Navi. What was the Navi complaining about, telling us to do? Amalem Navi Yisrael. The Navi says to the Jewish people, Chizru b'tshuva, do tshuva, abasechem shechatu heichanem. Your fathers that did tshuva, did sins, heichanem, they're dead. Amar lehem, so we answered the Navi, your Nevi'im, your prophets that did not do sin, where are they? They also died, so everybody dies. What are you telling me? Do tshuva because I'm going to die? Shenema, and that's a good answer. Shenema, avasechem ayahem. The Navi says, where are your fathers? We're answering, are the Nevi'im forever going to live? I mean, Amar lehem, so the Navi says, Amar lehem, Chazru v'haidush. Nema ach devarai v'chuka ashtivisis devadai neviim. We ended up agreeing to the Navi that we should do tshuva, and we said that we deserve whatever is going to happen to us. Shmuel says, Bo asar b'nei adam yashu lefanav. There were 10 people that sat before, I think Yecheskel. 10 people sat before him. And Amar lehem, so Yecheskel said to them, Chizru b'tshuva, do tshuva. Amrullah, so they said to him, we don't have to do tshuva, we don't have to keep the Taryag mitzvahs anymore, because once the first temple is gone, God sold us to Nebuchadnezzar. Evet shemachru rabbi, if a slave that was sold by his master, the Jewish people was sold by God, or the Isha Shiger Shabala, or if a husband was divorced his wife, we were divorced by God, and we're married now to Nebuchadnezzar, we're Babylonians now. Kish yashla zeh klum. Does anybody have any complaints? We're going our own way. Don't ask us to do tshuva. We're done. We're not Jews anymore. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu the Navi. God says to the Navi, Leichem lehem. Go tell the Jewish people we're not divorced. Did I give you a bill of divorce? Did I owe anybody money that I had to sell you? It's because of your sins and negligences and willful sins, that's why I sent you away. But once you do tshuva, I'm taking you back. That's what Rish Lakish says. Why does the pasuk say David Avdi? David is my slave, and Nebuchadnezzar Avdi, and Nebuchadnezzar is my slave. Now David is a tzaddik, and God calls him as my slave. And Nebuchadnezzar is a rasha, and God also calls him my slave. The reason why it was known before the master who created the world. The Jews are going to say, you sold us to Nebuchadnezzar, we don't want to be Jews anymore. Therefore, God said and called Nebuchadnezzar my slave. And therefore, if Nebuchadnezzar bought you and Nebuchadnezzar is my slave, then you're back to me again. That's what God is saying. If a slave bought possessions, who does it belong to? Of course, it belongs to its master. So just because you're now under the jurisdiction of Nebuchadnezzar, you're still Jews. Again, you see the mindset of Jewish people is that after the destruction of the first temple, it was such a shock that they felt that we're just like any other humans. We're not special anymore. And we want to say to God, we want to be like the rest of the families on earth. We want to be like Japanese, like any other people of the world. And God says, I swear, I'm going to make you feel it, and with anger, but I'm going to be the king over you. I'm not giving you up. Amar Rav Nachman, Kol kahariska litrach rachmana alam. I don't mind if God gets angry like this against us, and just redeem us. The Yisru lamishpat elikav yarenu. So Amar Rabba Bramachana Amar Lehen Naval Yisrael. Here's another complaint, a suggestion or request by the prophet to the Jewish people. Chizru b'tshuva, do tshuva. Amar Lai, so the Jewish people answer the prophet. Ein anu yecholim, we can. Yetzahara shaylet abanu. We have an evil inclination inside our brain, and we can't do it. Amar Hem Yasri Yitzarichem. Make your Yetzahara suffer a little bit. Amar Lai, they told him, Elikov Yarenim. God should show us how, because the Yetzahara is too strong. And that's something that God could understand, because we know that if God doesn't give a person siyata d'shmai, there's no way to overcome the Yetzahara. The Gemara continues. Bilam was, why is his name Bilam? And again, Bilam is one of the plain people. He wasn't the king, but he doesn't have Olam Haba, because Bilam means B'loi Am. He had no people. He didn't belong anywhere. He's just a loner. Davar Acha Bilam Shabila Am. He caused the nation of the Jewish people to get mixed up, to go into confusion, because he was advising the Moabite women to seduce the Jewish people. Bam Ba'ar, he's known as Bilam, the son of Ba'ar, Shabah al-Be'ir. He had bestiality. Ba'ar is another name for an animal. So he had relations with his own animal. Tana, we learned in the Braisa, who Ba'ar, who Kushan Rishasayim, who Lavan Aramim. The Ba'ar, the father of Bilam, is called Ba'ar. He's also known as Kushan Rishasayim, a figure in Shoftim. And he was also Lavan Arami from the Chumash. So he's like a Gilgal, like he had the same soul from all these people. Ba'ar, he's called Ba'ar, Shabah al-Be'ir, because he had relations with his animal. He's called Kishin Rishasayim, the one that did two bad things. The Avet Shtei Rishiyis b'Yisrael, he did two bad things. Achas b'mei Yaakov, one during the time of Yaakov, we know Lavan Arami. Achas b'mei Shvait HaShaytim, during the Shayfits. Right, but his original name was Lavan Arami. His original name was Lavan Arami Shmai. Ksiv, the pasuk says that Bilam is Ben Ba'ar. He's the son of Ba'ar. Uksiv, and another pasuk says B'noi Ba'ar, that the son of Bilam is Ba'ar. So who is Ba'ar? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Ba'ar is his father. Aviv B'noi Hu B'nevias, but his father was less of a prophet than Bilam. So he's like it's his biological father, but when it comes to prophecy, he was the son of Bilam. He had less power of prophecy than Bilam. So the Gemara says like this. I don't know what it says. Bilam hu delay asul amadasi. Bilam will not get olam haba. Ha'achrina, but other goyim are going to get olam haba, and that's must need some money. Who is our Mishnah going like? Answers the Gemara Rabbi Yeshua, because not every Tana holds that goyim are coming up to Chiyas HaMesim. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa that Yeshuv Risham Sha'ila Ele Paisha Yisrael Kagayim Shchechelhem Ele Paisha Goyim Divrei Ablezer, that every Russia of the Jewish people should be like a regular goy that's not going to get up to Chiyas HaMesim. They're going to end up just remaining in purgatory forever. Amar Lai Rabbi Yeshua says that the Jewish Paishem are going to be like the goyim, like every goy. Well, like Nemar him. It's only those goyim that forgot God. So a Russia that's a goy will not stand up Chiyas HaMesim, but every other goy will. Eli Yeshuv Risham Shaylam Maninu Kol Goyim Shchei Elihim. And Ba'af, And so that means that only goyim that are forgetting God, those are the ones that will not come to Olam Haba. But your regular guy will come to Olam Haba, and that's the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, which is the opinion of our Mishnah. And even Bilam thought he was going to Olam Haba. So it must be that goyim are going to Olam Haba. The Omar, he said, Thomas nafshi Moshe Shalom, im Thomas nafshi Moshe Shalom, tehei achrisi kamoyim, v'im la avini nehoylech la'ami. Bilam said that the siman was that if I die a normal death, then I know I'm going to Olam Haba. But Bilam was killed by the sword. So that's why that was a siman that he knew he's not going to Olam Haba. So we see that even Bilam thought that he was going to get Olam Haba. Then it says by Bilam, they went together. The Ziknei Moav and Midian is like Iran and Iraq getting together. So Tana, we learned in the Brisa, Midian and Moav lo Hashem ba'olam. They're two countries that never have peace with each other. But they get peace when they want to destroy the Jewish people. Marshal Shnei Klavim, if there are two dogs, that was watching let's say they were shepherd dogs. They were fighting with each other. So if a wolf came and tried to start up with one of the dogs, the other dog says, if I'm not going to help my friend, so he's going to kill one dog. The next day he's going to come kill me. So they both got together. They killed the wolf. So the two dogs are Midian and Moav, who always hate each other, but they made peace amongst themselves to take on the one common enemy, which is the Jewish people. Omar Papa says, that's why the people says, Kakushta v'shinra, a cat and a mouse, Avdi hiluli, they make peace, Vitarba de bishkada, from somebody who has a bad mazel, from the fat of somebody who has a bad mazel. So they can figure it out. The Yeshvei Sari Moav and Bilam. The Sari Moav settled with Bilam. The Sari Midian, Heichnazo. Originally Midian came to Bilam to hire him. Where did they go? Why did only the people of Moav, the ministers of Moav, stay with Bilam? So the ministers of Midian did not believe Bilam can do anything anymore, because Kivin the Amaluhu, since Bilam said Linu Poya Laila, I don't know what God's going to tell me. Stay here tonight, and I'll tell you if God lets me go. Amru, so the Midians gave up. They said, Klum Yesh Av Society. Is there a father who hates his children? Does God hate the Jewish people? So they figured it's a lost cause, so they left, and only the Sari Moav stayed overnight to be with Bilam. But nevertheless, God originally told Bilam not to go, and Bilam sort of said, I want to go. And Rav Nachman said, this is a very important point. Chutzpah, brazenness, if you really want to do something, God will allow you to do it. If you really forthright. Because originally the pasuk says, God said, don't go with them. And then in the end it says, go with them. So we see that if a person has sticks with something, is firm about something, even God will agree with him. So it should bring a refuah for people. Amar Rav Sheshes, chutzpah malchuse b'loy tagihi. Diksiv anoich hayom rach m'shuach melav anosh be'ela b'nei tzruyev kashim imenu. Chutzpah is like somebody who has the king without the crown, because Yoav, who was a general of David, did something, and almost like David could not stop him. David said, I'm just the anointed king, but he's more in control. Yoav had this chutzpah that overpowered the king. He was like a king side by side with David. Now the Gemara continues. Okay, we're going to stop in 5 minutes, but I need to turn the page. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Bilam chiga baragle achas haya. Bilam had he limped on one foot. Shnema v'yelech shefi. Shimshon, one of his feet was dislocated. Shimshon b'shtei raglav. Shimshon had 2 feet dislocated. Shimshon the Gibar, the strong one. Shnema shvifim ale orech haneshek v'sus. It says shvifim, so he had 2 dislocated feet. Bilam suma ba'achas me'enav haya. Bilam was blind in one eye. Shnema shusum ha'ayin. He could see with one eye, but he could not see with the other eye. Then the pasuk says, "Koisim ba'amasar haya." The Bilam was somebody who could do magic with his male organ. Ksiv hacha, it says in the pasuk, "Noichel uglu einayim." Ksiv ham chasam v'ham noifel al mita. And so Noifel means he was going to sleep with Esther, And Neufel, Gluyinayim, that Bilam said about himself, he's a Neufel, so it refers to his male organ. So he did something with his male organ, presumably it was sorcery or magic. Itma, Zutra says that he did sorcery with his male organ. He did znus with his donkey. We saw that before. We have a pasuk that explains that. We go to Amabei, Karat Nafal Shacham. By Sisera, it also talks about Bia, and it uses the Korah, and it says by Bilam, Korah. So Bilam slept with somebody. He wasn't married, so he slept with his animal. Now the pasuk says, "V'yadea das Elyon." Bilam prided himself that he knows what's going on in God's mind. He knows what's going on in God's mind. Says the Gemara, "Hasha das behemte lo have yada." Das Elyon have yada. He didn't know what's going on in his animal's mind. He should know what's going on in God's mind. Ma dat behemte. What did he mean? He didn't know what's going on in the animal's mind. The Amrle, my time rechafta asusya. Bilam was coming with a donkey, so the people around him, the Sarei Moav, said to him, "Why don't you use your horse?" It's out grazing. I wasn't prepared to go, so I'm just grabbing my donkey. Amrle, so the donkey said, the donkey talked. I'm your donkey. So he was embarrassed. He said, Latina Ba'alma, I only use you to carry loads, but I don't ride on you. So the donkey said, that's not true. Asher rechaftalai, you always ride on me. I cried. So the Bilam was excusing himself. I cry Ba'alma, I only use it once in a while. And the donkey said, you always ride on me from wherever. You never use a horse. Not only that, I sleep with you at night. So in other words, this donkey made a donkey out of Bilam and proved him, embarrassed him in front of all these people. So how could Bilam say, I know what's in the mind of my donkey, I know what's in the mind of God, when he didn't know what's in the mind of his own donkey? What does it mean? God, he knows what's in God's mind. He knew one thing about God. He knew exactly when God gets angry. The prophet says to the Jewish people, God said, remember how much righteousness I did. I didn't get angry during the days of Bilam Arasha. You see, Bilam Arasha knew there's a second in the time, in the morning, that God gets angry. And if you say a curse at that second, your curse is very, very effective. So God, during the time of Bilam, when he wanted to curse the Jewish people, God just didn't get angry. If God would have gotten angry, in those days, no escape, no remnant of the Jewish people would have been saved. Okay, we're going to stop in one more minute. So now, I can't curse God. If God's not going to allow me to curse, I'm not going to be able to curse. God didn't get angry. How long does God get angry? Rega. It takes a second. It takes a second, a rega, for God's anger to pass. But at least God gets angry for a second. And if you know exactly when God gets angry, then you can be effective at cursing somebody. So the Gemara wants to know, what's the secret? When does God get angry? But during the first 3 hours of the day. And when the crest of a rooster, right, I see the picture over here, turns white. Normally it's red, it can turn white. Says the Gemara, doesn't it always have red stripes? And says the Gemara, if you, during the first 3 hours of the day, there's one split second where it totally turns white, it doesn't even have red streaks in it. It's totally white. When you cop that second, you could say a curse word and then it'll be effective. And the Gemara says one last story. There was this Christian, the Rabbi Shuma Levi, that was in the neighborhood of Rabbi Shuma Levi. He was causing a lot of stress for Rabbi Shuma Levi. Yom Echad, so Rabbi Shuma Levi wanted to get rid of this Christian. Yom Echad, Rabbi Shuma Levi did the trick. He took a chicken, he took a rooster, put it by his bed, and he was waiting till that second where he can curse, will know God's angry, and he'll curse the min, and then cause a damage to that person. When it comes that second, I'm going to curse the min. When it came that hour, Nimnan, he fell asleep. He said to himself, it's proof, that's not the way to deal with your enemies. If a tzaddik punishes a rasha, that's not a good thing. Even if it's a Christian, I shouldn't do such a thing. And he abandoned his plan of cursing out the men. Okay, so we're going to stop over here. And Be'ez Hashem, we caught up, and we'll continue tomorrow.